There's a couple of really interesting points brought out in this reading. Swami's really making two different points. One is about reincarnation, the spiral staircase, but if you actually listen to what was spoken there, he didn't really say much about it after saying, there it is. This is the title, this is the biblical reference. Krishna says, yeah, it happens, and that's it. There's no big story, there's no wonderful past life memories, there's no after-death experiences, there's nothing. What he's really talking about is the difference between dogma and intellectual philosophy and direct perception, which is really a lot of the entire message that Paramahansa Yogananda came to America to bring. There's many different ways to sort of say this is the essence of what Master's mission was to this world at this time. And we often say one of the primary messages that Yogananda brought was Kriya Yoga. So we start saying, well, Ananda's a place where you can learn Kriya Yoga. And if you read Autobiography of a Yogi, and you read the chapter on Kriya Yoga, and it says that 1/2 minute of right practice of this particular technique is equal to 1 year of right living, and that you can shave countless millions of years of potential suffering off of your saga, you might say, I'm keen on that. That sounds like a really good idea to me. And people often come to places where Kriya is taught, and they come with a little shopping basket. I'm here to get Kriya. That's sort of what it is. And you put Kriya in the basket, and then you go home with it, and then you have Kriya. And there's that little caveat, 1/2 minute of correct practice of Kriya. It's not getting it into the basket, it's actually using it and having it make a real difference in your life. Now that's a whole other subject which we may come back and touch, but for the moment, the point I'm wanting to make about it is that Master did something that was a total revolution in the East, a total revolution in the West. And he did that for the longer story of the evolution, the awakening of planet Earth, moving into a higher age, which has to do with the whole story of the yugas, which is these various ages of enlightenment or darkness that cyclically go through planet Earth and are the explanation for things that are otherwise inexplicable, like how did they build those pyramids? How did that really happen? And was there really an Atlantis? And if it sank, why did it sink? And why did the Indian scriptures refer to the powers of mantra that could break buildings apart, and flying machines and travel to the other side of the earth at a time when they weren't supposed to be able to do that? Well, the whole story of the cyclical higher and lower ages on this planet makes that whole story very interesting. And the masters endorse this in the same way that Krishna just says, my authority for reincarnation is that Krishna says so. And the authority, the beginning authority for the idea that there have been higher and lower ages is that the masters say it's true. Now, in that particular one, we can pull in all kinds of interesting evidence, which friends of mine have done in a book called The Yugas, which I highly recommend. It is a surprisingly practical and helpful understanding to have in the face of what's going on the planet right now. And so Master came, Yogananda incarnated, born in 1893, come to the West in 1920, carrying the message of the East to the West, because we are in a rising age, an age of ever-increasing consciousness, Dwapara Yuga. And the weird thing you see about being in an ascending age is everything behind you is less enlightened than where you're going. So it makes the present time extremely entertaining, because nothing behind us is really going to tell us what's in front of us, because one of the little tricks of the way the cycle descends is that the nadir which was 500 AD, all the libraries are burned. That's just one of the things that the barbarians do. They just rush through, they burn all the libraries, which they literally did. And so everything is lost. And things become mysterious that were not mysterious before. So Master coming, he had many, many different missions, but one of them was simply this. Kali Yuga is the age of form, the age of dogma. It's the age of, I can be secure because I'm doing the right thing because the priest told me so. I can know that I'm going to be saved because I'm sitting in the right church and the minister told me so. And I can know that everything is all right because here it says in the scripture, and then you go another step. And this is what the scripture means. I know because my priest told me so, because my church told me, because my temple, whatever, however you do it, it's been the same all over the planet. And Master came to bring a completely different reality. And that reality is, oh, here is Kriya Yoga. Put it in your basket. Better still use it. And all by yourself. No dogma, nobody telling you what to do. You just sit by yourself with your own concentration, with your own breath, with your own resolution, and we gradually discover for ourselves what's actually true. And we move from the dilemma that Swamiji is talking about in the scripture, from just hearing it as somebody else's idea, to something that I really know for myself. Now, contemplate for a moment what an infinite difference that represents. If somebody told me it was true and it's supposed to be true and I follow these rules and this is what's supposed to happen, where is my authority? And when I'm all by myself somewhere, what do I really think is true? When I had the opportunity, in the early years of Ananda Village, I would sometimes teach classes up at our seclusion retreat, which was a 6-mile ride from where most of us lived. Part of that was across this barren, still is, place that was hydraulically mined and just the land was completely ruined. So it's still just this barren desert. There was a gentleman who had hitchhiked up to our place to spend a couple of days, and he ended up being in my class, and the class happened to be reincarnation. And now this was the early 70s. Nowadays, reincarnation has kind of, I don't know if it's mainstream, but it's come a lot farther into the story than it was then. So I gave what I thought was a reasonable class about reincarnation. I can't say that I remember, but I've become convinced. And so afterwards, I give this person a ride back, and when we're right in the middle of the wilderness area, so there's not a soul around, he leans over and he says, "Do you really believe all that?" Just like that. Like nobody is listening. Now you can tell me the truth. Yeah, actually I do. I really do. It's not, if nobody was around, I would still believe it. I had a very interesting experience, just an interesting thought. It might have been the first time I flew to India by myself, but in any case, I was by myself. I flew Korean Airlines. We stopped in Seoul, Korea, and I had a few hours to myself, and there I was. And I've been trained from the first time I met Swami in Master's predictions about tumultuous times that are likely to strike our planet before we really get into a higher age. Now you don't have to be a sage to be able to predict that, because we are in tumultuous times no matter where you look. So there I am, all by myself, thousands of miles from anywhere, and I think, what if it happens today? What if the meteor strikes the earth right now and I'm stranded in Korea for the rest of my life and I'll never get out? And immediately I just had this little picture. Well, I would probably do what most immigrants do, what many immigrants do when they first come to a country where they don't speak the language. They do manual work. So I would clean hotel rooms. Now there was a flaw in that, because if nobody's traveling, there's not going to be anybody in the hotels, but that was my picture. Somehow I'd become the hotel maid, and I would do that until I learned enough Korean to open an Ananda center. And it both pleased me and amused me that if I was all alone and there was no one else around me, it would still be true to me. And it would still be the work that I would look for, and it would still be the purpose of why I was born. It was very gratifying. You know, it was just like wandering. You're half asleep, you've been awake for a day and a half already. You don't know, you can't read the signs, you don't know anything that's going on. My mind is just going like this in kind of almost a subconscious way. And I'm always so pleased when my subconscious supports my conscious and my superconscious. Isn't that lovely when it does that? I had a dream once, speaking about death, which is what reincarnation is also about. I had a dream, it just came out of nowhere, I don't know. The subconscious mind, Master said, your sleep dreams, most of them, he said, are not significant. They're there for your education and your entertainment. And so the subconscious mind is often quite entertaining and sometimes educational. So this one, who knows where it came from, I was going to have my head chopped off. And it was just like it was going to happen. And I was on, now that I think about it, it was something, it was sort of like a theater stage is what it felt like. But you know, like a big dramatic darkened theater where no one is there and you're just on the stage. And a very good friend of mine, who at that time was part of our Sangha, just a buddy, he was the one who was going to cut my head off. You know, it was all just arranged. And he had one of those ancient battle axes, you know, with the sort of big curved thing. And he was a perfectly modern person, just kind of holding the battle axe. And I was to go in the center of the stage and just put my head down on the block, and he was going to cut it off. It was all very cordial. And it was all also just fine until just as he raised it, and he's starting to come down with it, this thought comes into my mind, ooh, this could hurt. You know, it's the first time it crossed my mind. Then I remembered that Master said, when the soul knows that something awful is going to happen to the body, it pulls out just before. Like, I know what's about to take place, why should this happen? And I know, I've heard of people who've had dramatic experiences like being smashed in a car, that they'll talk about that. They'll just go right up above it. Even if they don't die, they'll just step out for the point of impact because it's not going to be pleasant. There's a very interesting story of Edgar Cayce, who was tremendously, he lived in all the worlds at the same time. An elevator door opened and he needed to get into it, but he couldn't step in. The doors closed, the cable broke, the elevator fell, and everyone was killed. And at that point, he realized that no one in the elevator had an aura of light. And he didn't cognize it, but he was so accustomed to seeing light that when he didn't see light, it just puzzled him, and he stepped back. Of course, it wasn't his karma to die. In other words, all those souls knew it was about to happen. Master said martyrs also often don't suffer because at the last moment, the soul goes away. Done, we're finished. We don't need to stay for the last act. We'll just leave now. So anyway, so he's there. He's bringing the axe down. Thought crosses my mind that I could just leave now. I don't have to wait. And then all of a sudden, I'm shooting up from my body, and I can see this big empty theater, this huge empty stage. This is my favorite part. I looked down at whatever was going on down there, and I said, bye-bye, Asha, bye-bye, like that. Then I woke up laughing. It was just like, and I was laughing because I thought, good girl, you know, good girl. My subconscious mind didn't forget. It just remembered that we're just here for a period of time, and ooh, this may hurt, or I'm going to get out ahead of it. But when it's all finished, it's just bye-bye. Just in the most cheerful way, this is just what we've been doing. Now, I have a lot of waking hours that don't in any way resemble that dream, that are just filled with the same things that everybody's life is filled with, which is worry about this and tension about that and anxiety here and God knows, an all pervasive sense of now I have to be uncomfortable and now I have to worry. We're very, very interested in our own karma. It just fascinates it, why I feel like this, who did what to whom, what I'm going to do afterwards, what I'm going to have for supper, you know. I've often been in the cycle of teaching evening classes here, and I just have had this way of doing it, and it includes that I always have dinner afterwards because I don't like to be full of food if I'm trying to talk. And I joke to myself, on my way driving home, whether my car or my bicycle, I plan my dinner. I try very hard not to plan it during my class, but I never arrive home without knowing what my dinner is going to be. Isn't that what the mind is always doing? Let's not be here now, let's go there, forward, backward, forward, backward, forward, backward. It says in our reading today that most people don't remember their past lives, but we actually remember them vividly. We just don't realize that that's what we're remembering. Isn't that so? I saw a little documentary about a wonderful pianist, and he just said he never learned to play the piano, he just knew. No one in his family was musical at all, and somehow, though, he just begged his mother for a piano, and they managed to get some old piano. He was 5 years old. He crept downstairs and he just opened the music and he was able to play, and he was just weeping because it was so beautiful to him. Now that's an unusual circumstance, but not that unusual. Why are we drawn to certain things and not drawn to others at all? Even people in the same family can be so different. My favorite, what I call cuckoo egg story, as I understand it, the cuckoo bird just deposits its egg somewhere and lets somebody else raise it. And I know many of my friends feel like cuckoo eggs that were just deposited into somebody's family. This is my favorite cuckoo egg story. Somewhere in the plains of Texas, I lived in Texas till I was 15, so anything about Texas is vivid to me. Somewhere in the plains of Texas, in this cattle-raising family, this is a true story, there was this family and they had 12 children. To this day, 11 of their children are still on the plains of Texas doing whatever you do when you raise cattle. The 12th became a very skilled ballet dancer and was the artistic director here in San Francisco, and then is now somewhere in the Midwest. And as he simply put it, they had no idea what to do with me. And you know, I don't think he even tries to understand why he was born there. Who knows? Who can say? How in that environment would you want to study ballet? Well, it's because that's who you were before. Think of everything you've been drawn to. Think of every person that as soon as you met them, oh yeah, there you are. Quote, love at first sight. It's very simple. It's not first sight. This is just like, there you are. We got separated over this great adventure of going off into the astral world, and now here we are again. Many of you know that one of the founding members of Ananda, a lovely Nayaswami named Seva, passed away on Sunday night. She was 86 years old, the same age that, it's so funny for me when I say that number, because she was so youthful and so vibrant. Anyway, she was 86, so I mean, she had a good run. It was not a premature exit, same age that Swami was when he died. She was full of life and vitality, had just finished a work that she does on Sundays. She walked into her apartment. She felt a little odd, a little sick to her stomach and so on like that, and then her heart stopped, just like that. In a matter of minutes, she was gone. In fact, our doctor, the doctor who is at Ananda Village, our main village in Nevada City, he happened to live virtually next door to her. So when she was feeling a little unwell, one of her friends called Dr. Peter and asked him to come over. And Dr. Peter walked in the door, Seva saw him, and then she fell, and she died just like that. I know her well enough because my first 10 years of spiritual life, we were like Siamese twins. We were always together. And I could see her saying, oh dear, Peter's here. You know, I better get out while I can. I told Peter that, he thought it was very, very funny. He made an effort to revive her. I felt I could just almost see her watching him work on her body. And she had a way, sometimes she would tease, she would shake her finger at you. Peter, what are you doing? I'm gone, I'm not coming back. I talked to Peter also about that. Peter said, well, I had to give her a chance. You know, maybe she changed her mind. She wanted to come back. He's a magnificent devotee and completely at ease. He's been a wonderful doctor to us for decades. Yes, of course, that's what he had to do, but there she was. She and I, when I first came to Ananda in 1971, we lived together in the little monastery we had there, and we were always together. And I almost always, when I was with Swami, I was also with her. So for that decade. So it was a very, very close like this. And we had a psychic that was a very, very talented psychic woman, and I don't remember why, but for some reason either Seva or I got a reading. And in this case, she was not so talented. She said, this is the first lifetime that Seva and I had been together. Swami just thought that was absurd, just completely laughable. We don't just run into people and suddenly know them and realize that we have a destiny with them. It doesn't just start. We've been doing this, we are on this very long journey. And we were manifested by the Spirit, and that's always the big question. God must have thought it was a good idea at the time. That's the only thing I can think of. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense. I've given up trying to make any sense out of it. I just try to understand what the flow is. Here we are, and we have a great deal to learn. We live always between the God realization, which is our absolute destiny. When Swamiji played the part of Jesus in a tableau for the Masonic Lodge in Los Angeles, how all those pieces came together for him to do it, who knows. But there he was in Los Angeles as a young man. The Masonic Lodge was doing some kind of a program, and they wanted a tableau where Jesus would sit against the rock of the wonderful, what they call the rock of agony. This is in Jerusalem, you can go visit it, and it is powerful. Agony, no. Power, yes. Agony, because that's how they have interpreted what Jesus went through. This is the intellectual, starts with this, and reasons, just as Swami says, along what it knows. Well, he's about to be crucified. That certainly scares me. I was going to say scares the bejesus out of me, but isn't that... What a funny word that is, isn't it? That's so you can take the name of God in vain without actually doing it. That's what all those things are that you make up. So that frightens me, so that we must think that must have frightened him. I would be terrified of that. I would think this is going to hurt. But you have to be identified with your body and concerned about your own well-being. And of course, when you live in the state of God realization, you have only one wish, and that wish is to serve. And beyond that, we literally can't imagine. Master puts it in terms of samadhi, enjoyable beyond imagination of expectancy. Fantastic use of words. Beyond imagination of expectancy. We can't literally imagine what that state of mind is like. I had about 2 seconds once in my life when I was climbing the stairs in the apartment I lived in. And I was thinking, what would it be like to be absolutely without fear, that nothing could frighten me? And for about 2 seconds I felt it. And then, of course, I came right back to who I normally am. But the masters, they are one with everything. Fear is that something could happen that is not what we want, but there has to be an I to want it. And when all there is a unity with infinity and a participation in this extraordinary, what a story, where all souls are moving through the river of many incarnations to merge into the sea. And everything leads to God realization. And nothing that happens is outside the will of God or outside that promise of absolute freedom. These are words, only words. But when we go through Kriya Yoga or whatever we practice, when we gather that bundle of external ideas and interiorize our awareness so that the only reality is the breath and the flow of energy, and then look at these ideas, the implications for us, well, it's a revolution. Swamiji talked about when he was a young man living with Master. He said Master was so charming and so delightful to be with. Just everything about him just magnetized you. He said that sometimes people lost sight of the magnitude of the revolution to which he was calling us. You know, that everything, well, the Gita says it also, that which is day to the worldly man is night to the yogi. And that which is night to the worldly man is day to the yogi. Because once we understand where this river is heading and where we're trying to go, it literally changes everything. I mean, this whole planet at this stage is all thinking about ease and pleasure and power for me. This is the great age of me. And we're moving a little bit toward Dwapara because now the societal definition of what we're supposed to be doing is just fragmenting all over the place. Even in my short, relatively speaking, lifetime compared to the flow of eternity, my favorite was when the YMCA, which is where I go to swim, the Young Men's Christian, capital Christian Association, was only open for a few hours on Easter morning, on Easter, and it was from 8 till 1 o'clock, just the time when you would go to church. But they were open for athletics at the time when we were supposed to be going to church, and nobody even thought about it. And when I was growing up, no children's activities would ever happen on Sunday morning, and now all the soccer games, everything. The form is just gone. So Dwapara is coming up, but in the age of me, now I self-determine everything. I find out I don't believe anybody for any reason, I just find out for myself. It's a positive direction. It's a chaotic transition, but it's a positive direction because, at least as Swami put it, people are making experience the criteria of their decisions. Great. And it'll work well, Swami said, provided people are honest about their experience. Ooh, big proviso, isn't it? Instead of just doing what I want, what I don't want, what I want, what I don't want. I like it, I don't like it, I fear it, I love it. It's just chaos. And into this, Master puts Kriya Yoga, where we at least, and not everybody in the world is going to take Kriya, not yet at least, but what happens is the Masters lead. We think that these politicians are actually leading, and all I can say is thank God they're not really leading. They are the instruments of the mass karma, as Swami put it so simply. A country gets the government that it karmically needs to bring this whole story together, because the Masters are really running the show. Divine Mother is running the show. Every single one of us is exactly where we're supposed to be, doing exactly what we're supposed to be doing, which is to be given the opportunity to choose. And what will I choose? Will I choose an ever-expanding, reaching up for a greater and greater reality, or will I cling to what I already know and try to find my comfort in familiarity and in dulling my awareness? And this is just the war that just goes on forever. And that's why we keep reincarnating, because it takes us a while to figure this thing out. And we're born, and we're born exactly where we left off. We have an interlude, seemingly, in the astral world, and various things happen. We get to learn. Swami said, when you die, I love this, nothing happens. That's what he said, just sort of with this puzzlement. Nothing happens. Because my point of view, my self-definition, my sense of individuality, it just steps over like that. When Seva died, there are people, and my heart goes out to them. There was a group of women for whom Seva was the central point of their lives together. I did that for a decade. I know what that loss will mean to them. So my heart goes to them. After that, I couldn't stop smiling. I just couldn't stop smiling. How terrific! She just stepped over like that. And I can feel how much fun she's having. Just having fun, being herself. And she didn't get happy because she died. She got happy because she was happy. Because she understood. I'm here for one purpose. She herself articulated it. She wrote a beautiful blog about a decade ago. Learn to love, it said. And she talked about, and she had some extraordinary karmic challenges, nothing that really showed, but within herself. And she wanted everybody in the world to do it her way. And after 20 years, she realized that really wasn't working for her. It just wasn't working. And she decided that it was much more practical to think about what she could give. And she began to learn to love. That's all that happens. That's all we're here for, to learn to love. Oh, we have to do this, we have to do that. Swamiji and I used to joke, we called them petty entertainments. No, petty enthusiasms. Like the books he was writing, the communities we were building, all of that. Petty enthusiasms compared to the real assignment, which is to learn to love. And it just takes us a little longer. I mean, think about this lifetime. We've all made at least a little progress, but are we perfect? And here is the good news. We get to become perfect. And we just get to keep going. As Master was asked once, is there any end to evolution? No, he said, you keep on evolving until you achieve endlessness. When I deeply accepted and understood the fact of reincarnation, that there were a lot of them before and a lot of them perhaps coming after, many fewer in front of me than behind me. I won't say zero, but I certainly know there's much less in front of me than there is behind me. For me at least, it was this long, relaxed exhalation. Oh, I'll do my best, but I have as much time as I need. And there's no such thing as failure. There could be postponement of success, but there's absolutely no such thing as failure. If I don't learn it today, I'll learn it tomorrow. And it's also, at least for me, been a great incentive. Oh my gosh, I never want to see this one again. So there's no escape either. So if there's no escape, let's just do it. Let's just learn how to love, because that's all that we're here for anyway. And that's the only thing that'll bring us the joy that we're seeking. God bless you.
Long I called you, my Lord. Long I've called you. Many years I have longed for your sight. Bathe the darkness with tears of devotion. offered candles in prayer to your light. How much longer, friend, must I cry your